The voice in your head was never yours. If you believe those thoughts are you, then why do they betray you, accuse you, and sabotage you in silence? And what if what speaks inside you is an intruder using your name, and this video reached you to expose that and return something you lost without realizing it? Rumi made it very clear. As long as you believe everything you think, you will live as a prisoner of a voice that was never you, and you will call that life. You feel this daily pressure, this narrative that never shuts up, this inner judge that always finds a way to diminish you. The promise here is simple and brutal: to separate you from the noise, rip the mask off the false self, and open real space for the soul to breathe. No fantasy, no cheap comfort, only truth. The voice in your head was never yours. It speaks in you, but it never spoke for you. Rumi pointed this out without mercy. What screams is not the center. What accuses is not the heart. What judges is not the origin. This voice uses your memories as weapons, your fears as fuel, your desires as bait, and you call that me. You wake up and it is already there, analyzing, comparing, predicting failure with cruel precision. You call that identity. In Sufism, this has a name: nafs, the fabricated self, reactive, hungry for control. It is not a demon, not the mind, not the soul. And it is an actor who learned its role so well that you forgot there was a stage. Write in the comments now just this: this voice is not mine. If this touches something inside you, become a member of the channel. Rumi said that certain portals are only crossed when there is real surrender, not superficial curiosity. You think? Rumi would say something harsher: you are being thought. The voice decides what you feel before you even notice the body. It creates urgency where there is no danger, guilt where there was no crime, an imaginary tomorrow to rip you out of now, and you obey. Sufism does not try to improve this voice, make it kinder or more positive. It exposes it. Because the mistake was never that the voice exists. The mistake was kneeling before it as if it were king. Rumi never asked you to fight thoughts. He was more ruthless and more truthful. Suffering begins the instant you believe the narrator. The nafs grows stronger when you try to defeat it with effort, when you debate, explain, justify. It loves long explanations, loves spirituality used as makeup. Here the ego still finds intellectual shelter, here it feels clever. And this is exactly where Rumi would step without asking permission. Notice how this voice always speaks in I but never delivers presence. It promises control but produces tension, promises protection but generates fear, promises success but manufactures comparison. This is not you. This is a survival mechanism that grew too large and took the throne. Rumi pointed to something simple and devastating. The real makes no noise. The soul, Ru, does not accuse, does not shout, does not pressure. It reveals itself when you stop obeying. Try this now, without ritual, without mysticism. Do not argue with the voice. Observe it. When it arises, feel its tone. It is harsh, urgent, always now or never. Rumi would say everything that pressures comes from fear. The soul does not pressure, it attracts. The difference is felt in the body. The ego contracts, the soul expands. The ego tightens the chest, the soul opens space. If you do not notice this, it is not lack of sensitivity, it is excess identification. The nafs needs you to believe it is necessary. It whispers, without me you won't protect yourself. Lie. Without me you won't grow. Lie. Without me you are nothing. The final lie. Rumi was direct. What you seek is closer than your own breath, but the voice distracts you so it does not lose power. The ego needs psychological time, past and future. The soul exists only now. Here the ego begins to feel threatened, because if this voice were you, it would not hate you on the days you fall. If it were you, it would not treat you as an enemy. If it were you, it would not keep you small while promising greatness. You call this mature self-criticism. Rumi would call it by its real name: normalized intimate violence. In Sufism, the path is not to calm the mind, it is to remove authority. The voice may continue speaking, but it loses the microphone. How does that happen? By not reacting, not believing, not feeding. The nafs starves when it does not receive emotional attention. Each time you feel and do not react, something breaks. Each time you observe and do not follow, something returns to its place. Practice now. When the voice appears today, do not say, I shouldn't think this. Say inwardly, this is happening, but it is not me. Do not fight, do not flee. Stay. Rumi knew, the ego panics when it finds neither resistance nor obedience. It feels seen, threatened, almost ridiculous, exactly as it needs to be. Rumi never promised comfort. He promised truth, and the truth is simple and brutal. The voice only commands because you signed the contract without noticing. Cancelling that contract does not require heroic effort, it requires lucidity, And lucidity is born when you realize there is something in you that sees the voice. What sees was never the voice. If this is real, why did something in you fall silent just now? Why did a strange relief appear without explanation? Who noticed that? Rumi would say, this is the true lover recognizing the false one. And what if the next step is not understanding more but letting go more? What happens when you do not follow the next thought? And the next? And the next? The voice hates when you stop. It lives on movement, reaction, urgency. When you do not chase it, something strange happens. It begins to repeat the same phrases like a scratched record. And then the trick is revealed. There is no intelligence there. Only habit, only conditioning, only fear dressed as logic. Rumi knew the ego seems deep until it is observed in silence. You spent your life trying to improve this voice, make it more elevated, more spiritual, more acceptable. That was the mistake. Sufism did not polish the ego, it dethroned it. The nafs is not healed, it is surpassed. Every attempt to fix it is just the ego changing clothes to stay in charge. Notice, the voice always takes you to the past or the future, guilt or anxiety, never now, never silence, never presence. Because now is where it does not exist. The ego needs story, the soul needs space, and you confused noise with life. Rumi taught that the path is not moving forward, but remembering who you were before you learned to defend yourself, prove yourself, compare yourself. The soul does not need to be built, it only needs you to stop interfering. The ego feeds on identity. I am like this. I think like this. I have always been like this. Each of these sentences is a leash. When you say I am, the nafs smiles. The soul does not define itself. It simply is. When you begin not to obey, the ego shouts louder. It creates bigger dramas, stronger emotions. This is not regression, it is resistance. It is the false king realizing the throne is not his. Sufism does not seek beautiful experiences. It seeks naked truth. Sometimes this comes as emptiness. Sometimes as uncomfortable silence. Sometimes as the clear sense that something old is dying. It is. Rumi said, only what is not real needs to die. The voice will try to convince you this is dangerous, that you will lose ambition, identity, importance. Observe the blackmail. The ego confuses peace with death because it only knows tension as proof of existence. The soul needs no proof, it is recognized by its taste. When you do not follow the voice, clarity arises without effort. Decisions become less dramatic, more firm, less explanation, more clean action. The ego hates this because it loses the stage. There is a silent point in you that has never argued, never explained, never needed to win. Rumi pointed to this point when he spoke of leaving by the back door. It is not escape, it is return. You do not need to eliminate thoughts. Thoughts arise. The only real question is, who commands? When the voice speaks and you do not move, power changes hands without a fight. As long as you identify with the voice, you do not live. You react, repeat, survive. The soul does not react, it responds, and responding requires space. The ego wants to be special. Even in spirituality, it wants titles, states, elevated identity. Sufism cuts this without mercy. There is no trophy. There is detachment. The more you try to be someone, the farther you are from what you are. Today, when the voice wants the last word, give none, not with anger, with calm lucidity. This is not contempt. It is inner maturity. The ego withers without an audience. You do not need to get rid of anything. You need to stop sustaining it. The voice only seems strong because you feed it with attention, withdraw attention, and it returns to what it always was, automatic noise. If all this seems too simple, it is because the ego wants complexity to feel necessary. Truth requires no technique, it requires radical honesty. Are you willing not to follow the next thought? And what if freedom is not a future state, but this exact instant in which you realize you do not need to believe what you think? What if the gate was always open but you insisted on arguing with the imaginary guard? What happens if you stay here just one more moment without obeying? The voice that judges you never loved you. Rumi made this implacably clear. What loves does not accuse, diminish, or threaten. If the voice cuts you from inside, it is not a guide, it is a jailer. The ego poses as protector but only knows how to wound. It promises safety while tightening the noose. Rumi spoke of the thief who lives in the house. You lock doors against the world, but hand the key to the one who robs you from within. This voice knows your secrets because you told them, knows your pain because you relived it, and now uses everything against you, calling it realism. When the voice speaks, notice, it always demands proof. Proof of worth, proof of deserving, proof that you are enough. The soul asks for no proof. The soul recognizes. The ego lives on endless tests because it never wants to lose control of the game. Rumi said that where there is tense effort, there is ego. Observe the weight on your shoulders when you try to handle everything. Observe the tightness when you try to be someone. That weight is not life, it is resistance. The soul does not weigh, it flows when you do not push. The voice calls you to imaginary battles, arguments that never happen, shames that already passed, fears that have not arrived. It keeps you busy so you do not feel, because feeling dissolves the false center, and the ego knows this. There is a moment, small, almost invisible, when you notice the voice arising. That moment is gold. Rumi would call it remembrance. It is not control, it is clarity. It is there that you choose not to follow. And in not following, something opens without noise. The ego hates that moment because it has no authority there. It only commands later, when you are already confused. The soul appears before like a whisper of truth. If you miss it, do not fight. Wait for the next. They come all day long. Rumi did not teach replacing bad thoughts with good ones. He taught changing center. While the center is the voice, everything revolves around fear. When the center shifts, fear loses orbit. It does not vanish at once. It weakens. You call the voice mine because it speaks in the first person. An old trick, an actor wearing your face. Rumi called this a mask. The mask screams because it does not want to be removed. The true face does not need to scream. When you do not react, the voice tries to seduce. It becomes spiritual, deep, advisory. Be careful. The ego is versatile. It learns the language of light to keep power. Rumi warned, not every gentle voice comes from the soul. The soul does not negotiate, it remains. If something drags you, it is not it. If something pressures you, it is not it. If something humiliates you inside, it is not it. The soul does not humiliate, it reveals. The ego needs you to believe that without it you disappear. Rumi turned this upside down. It is by following the ego that you disappear. You become reflection, repetition, echo. By letting it go, you appear for the first time. Notice the simple joy when you do not obey. It is not euphoria, it is relief, like removing an old weight from the chest. The ego calls this danger. The soul calls it home. Rumi spoke of burning, not improving. Burning what is not you. It hurts because you confused yourself with what will be lost. But what remains is lighter, quieter, truer. You want a sign? The sign is the silence that arises when the voice loses strength. It is not dead emptiness. It is living space. In that space, decisions are born without drama. Actions arise without noise. The ego cannot operate there. The voice always wants conclusion, closure, definition. The soul leaves things open. Rumi lived in the open. Where there is no label, there is no prison. Where there is no prison, there is real movement. When the voice says I, ask silently, who sees this? Do not answer with words. Feel. The ego cannot tolerate questions without mental answers. The soul rests in them. Rumi insisted, the path is inward but not toward the mind, it is toward the observing point. If you try to understand this with the voice, it wins. If you experience it, it retreats. You do not need to expel anything, you need to stop identifying. Identification is the glue. Release the glue and the parts fall away on their own. The ego dissolves when it finds nowhere to stick. If something in you became quiet now, do not celebrate, do not explain, stay. The ego returns when you turn this into an achievement. The soul remains when you do not appropriate it. What if the next thought is not followed? And the next? And if you stay exactly here, without narration? What remains when the voice loses breath? And who are you when silence begins to speak without words? The voice that pressures you fears what Rumi called remaining in the middle of the fire. Because in the fire of presence, the ego cannot negotiate. It burns. The voice tries to pull you out of the moment because it knows if you stay, it loses its disguise. Heat reveals what is alive and what is mask. Rumi spoke of the open field beyond right and wrong. The voice hates that field. There is no judgment to lean on, no guilt to hide in, no victory to boast of. In the open field, the ego is naked, and naked, it is small. Notice how the voice always wants to put you on sides. Me against them. Right against wrong. Success against failure. Dividing is the fastest way to rule. The soul does not divide, it includes effortlessly. Where there is division, fear is trying to command. The voice promises clarity but delivers tension, promises direction but creates hurry, promises identity but produces inner conflict. Rumi did not ask you to choose a better version of the ego. He invited you to cross the river and leave the weight on the bank. The ego lives on anxious questions. What if? When? What if it goes wrong? The soul answers with silent presence. It does not explain, does not convince. It sustains. The ego panics when it does not receive answers in words. Rumi said the wound is where the light enters. The voice uses the wound to accuse you. The soul uses the wound to open you. The difference is not in the pain but in the direction. One closes, the other expands. The voice wants you to fix yourself before living. The soul invites you to live in order to remember. The ego postpones. The soul begins now, always now, and this drives control insane. Notice how the voice calls rest weakness, silence loss, peace stagnation. It is a lie, it is fear of losing function. Rumi saw rest as return to the real, not escape. When you do not react, the voice tries to humiliate you, says you are avoiding, running, denying. Observe the cruelty. The ego attacks when it feels the throne shake. Do not argue, stay. It tires without an audience. Rumi spoke of the lover who disappears when true love arrives. The ego is that false lover, loud while reigning alone, gone when presence enters, not because you expelled it, but because it has nowhere to stand. The voice promises belonging if you obey, belonging to a group, an image, a narrative. The soul belongs without permission. It does not negotiate identity. It recognizes origin. You do not need to defeat the voice. You need not serve it. Each time you do not follow, a thread breaks, not all at once, thread by thread. This is how Sufism cuts. With silent constancy. Rumi warned of the danger of loving one's own chains. The voice becomes habit. Habit becomes comfort. Comfort becomes prison. And you call this who I am, until the day you realize the cell is internal. When the voice speaks of self-love, see if there is hidden demand. Love yourself but change. Accept yourself but prove. The soul loves without condition. The ego loves with contract. The ego wants visible results to feel safe. The soul transforms invisibly first. You feel before you understand. Align before you explain. The ego despises this because it cannot measure it. Rumi said silence is the language of God. The voice translates everything into words because it cannot tolerate silence. When you become quiet inside, something greater communicates without sentence. The ego has no access there. The voice always wants to close the story. Give quick meaning. The soul leaves the story open so truth can breathe. Where everything closes, something dies. Where it remains open, something lives. If you are still here, it is because something in you recognizes this without needing to agree. That recognition does not come from the voice. It comes from the point that sees. Stay with that point. Do not turn it into an idea. The practice is simple and cruel to the ego. Notice and do not follow. Notice and do not follow. Notice and do not follow. The rest happens on its own, outside control, outside vanity. Rumi did not promise the voice would disappear. He promised you would no longer be governed, and that changes everything, because freedom is not external silence, it is inner sovereignty. If the next thought arises now, will you obey or observe? And if you observe, who observes? And if you stay without answer, what reveals itself when the voice realizes it no longer commands, and that another center, older and truer, has begun to breathe? If something in you became silent now, it was not the mind understanding. It was the soul remembering. Rumi never spoke to the curious. He spoke to those tired of obeying the inner imposter. The voice that governs you does not fall by fighting. It falls by lucidity. And lucidity does not come from learning more but from stopping following. If this content passed through you, do not let the ego turn this into a beautiful insight and move on as if nothing happened. Write in the comments, I am not the voice. This is not empty engagement. It is a public commitment to the truth you felt. Like the video, so this cut reaches those who still believe that voice is identity. Share with someone who lives imprisoned by their own inner dialogue. Sometimes liberation begins when someone hears what they cannot yet hear alone. And before you leave, stay with this. When the next thought arises, will you obey or observe? Because the path did not end here. It begins every time you do not follow.